I think we're good. It's looking good. It's looking like everything is lined up. Rumble seems to be working. I think it's connected to X. I think it's good. I think we look good. Hey, how's it going? Good morning. I've got a few things I want to talk about today, and we're going to start. Actually, if I don't do this now, so I was talking about Strecker, Robert Strecker, the Strecker Memorandum, which you need to look up. I need to share it on X immediately. I need to do that when I get off of here. Hopefully, I will remember. If I don't, I'll do it later. We were talking about the Strecker Memorandum, where Robert Strecker, he was a physician out in LA, and he was into virology, and he was doing some work for let's see if I can find the note. He was doing some work for he was doing health maintenance security for Pacific Bank, working on insurance proposals. And so he was kind of an advisor, medical advisor for an insurance company, or for at least for these specific proposals, and stumbled upon some really interesting things with AIDS. Found that AIDS, even though it supposedly came from a monkey biting somebody in Africa, when you actually look at the DNA of AIDS, it had cattle genetics and something called Visna virus, which comes from sheep. He goes in the Stricker Memorandum, and he was not the only physician. There's a handful of physicians that had the guts to actually use critical thinking skills and their own eyeballs and brains to take a look at the virus. And it's kind of interesting what was being done in terms of looking at animal retroviruses and putting them in human tissue, and calls within the people within the World Health Organization saying, hey, this is something we ought to look at. This is something we ought to think about. It seems to be maybe the beginning of what we now understand as gain of function, where you create really terrible viruses so that you can study them, so that you can, I don't know why they do it, push humanity forward in their minds. But that's interesting, because I stumbled on an NPR piece that just came out yesterday, and it's, if you look it up, it's called "How AIDS Crisis Helped Create a Multi-Billion-Dollar Death Speculation Market," and that's something to think about. That's something to think about. How much money is involved in disasters? We know that Keynesian economics there's the broken glass theory that you need jobs, right? Things are bad. Things are bad. Economy's down. We need jobs. Well, the government can't create anything. Anytime it tries, it fails. It's the government is a bureaucracy by definition. Their job is oversight of our passions, or at least that's what Madison wanted it to be. I got pink drink today, no purple drink. I got pink drink. It's good. It's good. I don't have any coffee in me. So hopefully I won't be as over the top with energy. I'm gonna try to be a little more chill today. And I worked out this morning, and I haven't done that for the past 2 broadcasts. So that's good. It levels me out a little bit. But we'll see. It does have red 40, and I have something called attention deficit disorder. I was on Ritalin for many, many years. And red 40 supposedly really kicks in with ADD. So we're going to see if I can stay on track. But the last couple times that I've gone live, I tended to get, I don't know, you saw the ADD shine through. So I may have made a big mistake by putting red 40 in my water bottle, but I gotta work with something. I don't want to be monotone on here. How AIDS crisis helped create a multi-billion-dollar death speculation market. Multi-billion-dollar, that's a lot of money. Okay, so there's this deal where you don't have to die to get back a percentage of your life insurance that you've paid in. And so it's called a life settlement, I guess. And it's where you sell your insurance policy to an investor for a fraction of the face value of the policy, something like 20 to 30 cents on the dollar. Company pays the premium when you die and gets the full payment instead of your beneficiaries. They get all the money. They keep paying in, and then when you die, they get the money. But we live in a world of incentives, right? And that's what makes, RFK Jr. was just talking about Lyme disease being lab grown. That's a product of the government messing with gain of function research. Caroline Strecker just mentioned to me a couple days ago, and then sent me the article that there was a lab in a home in Las Vegas that was connected to the CCP doing some sort of gain of function research. And if you listen to the Strecker memorandum and how they were creating, how they were messing with viruses, how they came up with like the smallpox vaccine, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to mess around with this stuff. And so to a certain degree, I see the need whenever people are like, hey, AI is super dangerous. But a lot of things are super dangerous. A lot of things are super dangerous. And somehow we get by. Back to the age thing. So there's a life settlement, which is, again, you get back to incentives. Isn't that strange that suddenly some life insurance company, I mean, they have every incentive. The last thing they want to be doing, say you say you've been paying in since you were 40 and now you're 70. That's a lot of equity. That's a lot of money that's been paid in. You're probably going to get a good chunk when you pass, or your beneficiaries would. But now there's a corporation that has vested interest in you not living. That's interesting. That's weird. I've heard conspiracy theories about the federal government having vested interest in you not making it to Social Security age, but it seems petty. Seems like, well, that's not that much money, so it's kind of hard to buy into that one. I hope, but this multi-billion-dollar industry, and the sooner you die, the better off they are in terms of their payout, especially if they're paying you 20 to 30 cents on the dollar of as I understand what you paid in already. Maybe it's 20 or 30 cents on the dollar of the full payout. That I'm not completely clear on. Fraction of the face value of the policy. So yeah, it's of the policy itself. So if it's $100,000 policy, they're going to give you maybe 10, 20, 30,000. So life insurance, your life insurance is an asset. And there's this guy that looked into it and kind of blew the whistle. I don't even know if you call it blow a whistle. It's legal. But he thought, hey, people need to pay attention to this. And he was a cancer survivor and had a family. And according to the article, he understood that there's something weird about the fact that these insurance companies make the most money the sooner you die. Like it feels wrong, right? It's one of those gut things where you're just like, that's, especially in this age of AI where artificial intelligence can be weaponized. But Dave, you're pro artificial intelligence. Yes, I'm pro artificial intelligence. I'm also pro digital bill of rights. I think we deserve privacy. We're to the point in America where there's enough cameras and enough microphones surrounding us at all times that if we do not get a digital bill of rights soon, it's 1984. We talk about how everybody jokes about it. It's 1984 or what's the other one? Huxley, Brave New World. Who do you know that's not on medication? And if we don't get that digital bill of rights, who's to say that some corporation that can afford really good, powerful AI, something like an insurance company, couldn't keep track of your every move and maybe, there's theories out there about social credit scores. What about your life expectancy score? Are you getting, I don't know, it's getting weird. It's getting really weird. So this guy was a cancer survivor and he calls to look into it because he understands that as a cancer survivor, the best predictor of T is T minus one. And what that means is the best predictor of something is what happened the day before in terms of that thing. And so if somebody has cancer, there's a good likelihood, not a good likelihood, but maybe a better likelihood that they will develop cancer again compared to someone who's never had it. So he understood that as a cancer survivor, he might get a lot of these companies interested if he wanted to go ahead and take out that money. Because when he found out that he had cancer, I don't know if that's when he got the life insurance, but he survived it. He got through, and he sounds like an awesome guy because he took it to the press. So yeah, he submits something online, probably in one of these websites that'll send it off to multiple insurance companies, and I guess his phone rang off the hook. So there are policies on people where Wall Street is waiting for them to die in order to reap the benefits. That exists. That's interesting. Everything is about incentives. It's called rational choice theory. You assume that anybody or any organization, institution is going to do things rationally. And what that means is they're going to do things in their best interest. The entire Constitution was formed the way it was created with rational choice theory in mind. That's why it's lasted. That's why it's survived. And you say, well, how is this possible that we could create this kind of incentive where Wall Street, specific companies are going to do better if you die sooner because they have a vested interest in your ending. And I guess in the Supreme Court in the early 1900s created a precedent of insurable interest, which is understandable. You can only take out a policy on someone's death if someone's death would hurt you financially or emotionally by blood or family relation. So you can't take out an insurance policy on your neighbor's car, because what's to keep you from lighting it on fire? It's not your car. That makes sense. Duh. You know. But then in 1911, the Supreme Court ruled that as long as you followed the rules when you took out the policy, it was yours to do with as you please. So you could go ahead and make these decisions for your policy. It was an asset. It became an asset. This is important in terms of AIDS. It's very important in terms of AIDS because suddenly people that know their time is coming, the news article shares a story about a couple, and this man's partner has AIDS, and he can't go work anymore. He's too weak, but bills are due. As well as he was getting further along, he was needing oxygen, and they couldn't even afford to pay for the tanks. And so they took out, I guess they did one of these deals, took out 10 grand or something to that effect, and were able to get by long enough until he passed, and then his partner didn't have to stay home and take care of him and was able to go get a job. It's sad. It's really sad, but people are calling it ghoulish. That's like the new thing is ghoulish. So if someone takes out a policy when they're healthy, their policy is priced based on being healthy. Now, say they fall terminally ill. If they took out a policy now, their premiums would be much more expensive because the insurer would expect them to die sooner. But the premiums largely aren't updated after a new health event like HIV. So, from an investment perspective, these policies suddenly were mispriced. Cue interest from investors. Some people thought the whole thing was ghoulish. But Page viewed turning to investors as a necessary evil for his ultimate goal, which was to help his clients alleviate the second hidden epidemic sweeping through the HIV community, the financial hardship of dying of AIDS. I've had people call me and say I'm a vulture, Page told a local newspaper in 92. But my customers never had anything to live on, and now they will. After Greg died in late 1993, Page tried to offer these deals to as many AIDS patients as he could. He'd seen how much the money had helped Greg toward the end of his life. By the late 1990s, Page had helped broker more than 3,000 of these deals, which had since been named viatical settlements, from the Latin meaning roughly money for a long journey. The miracle that was the new drug intervention to treat AIDS extended lifespans for decades. Page said that was obviously a miracle, but investors would now be paying premiums for much, much longer than they expected. The mispricing seemed to vanish overnight. It seemed like it would be the death knell for this weird, nascent industry, but the wheels of finance soon latched onto another clientele: old rich people. A new suite of companies sprung up after the millennium, offering to buy up policies from retirees who otherwise might have let their policies lapse. People who didn't necessarily need the money but just wanted to cash out for financial planning reasons. And how many people now that Gen X and millennials are going to be getting older, aren't even going to have too many beneficiaries to leave anything to, which is interesting. These companies send out salespeople across the country to pitch these deals to financial planners. Jonah Kahn worked for one of these companies in the early aughts as a wholesaler. They coined a new glossy adenine name, life settlements. Kahn told us the early days were slow going. The life insurance companies didn't like how these deals were eating into their profits. They had built their models around a certain percentage of people lapsing on their policies every year. Now, with the companies buying up the policies and never missing a payment, insurance companies were paying out more death benefits. Kahn was also getting peppered with questions from skeptical financial planners. Like this one time at an industry conference, someone raised their hand in the back of the room and said something to the effect of, "Isn't someone just going to kill my client?" Kahn said, "So everyone's thinking like the mob is out there, like buying these policies up." It's an interesting notion, is it not? It's a really interesting notion. You think the mob still exists? To put their minds at ease, Kahn explained the business model. The company he worked for would buy up a huge number of these policies to sell to big financial institutions. And the sheer number of policies obliterated any perverse incentives on killing one policyholder to get their return marginally sooner. It was already priced in. Basically, he said Wall Street was interested, very interested. After the 2008 financial crisis, hedge funds and investment banks were looking for safe places to park their money, not tied to other more volatile investments like the stock market. What's more certain than death? Good for NPR. This is a really good, really good article. So these firms started buying up tons and tons of these policies, sometimes even securitizing them into what eventually became known as death bonds. An abstraction of an abstraction of an abstraction. Well written, too. Concept. Who wrote this? Who wrote this? Vito Emanuel. Well done, Vito. This is really good. So I'm going to keep reading. Kahn said the life settlement companies kept seeking more growth to save Wall Street's appetite. But when they ran out of financial advisors to convince, they went directly to consumers, beaming their pitches straight from the yellow haze of daytime television into the living rooms of millions of graying Americans. You might have even seen commercials about this. A relic of this, you can still find some truly over-the-top YouTube videos of Betty White talking about cheesecake and being hot next to topless young men, produced by none other than Scott Page's brokerage. The ads were no longer targeted only to the financially savvy financial planners of the last era. Kahn explained that there's a huge information imbalance between these big life settlement companies and the person who calls the phone number on the television screen. It's incredibly difficult to know what a life insurance policy is even worth. You can't go to Zillow and say, "My neighbor sold his policy for X, so I can sell mine for Y," Kahn said. So it's like, Kahn, I like his name's Kahn. So it's like if I tell you it's worth 20 grand, you may believe me. Meanwhile, I know it's worth 300. Oh, I think he's the good guy. Never mind. Page is the evildoer in this story, at least the way it's framed. And I can see it seems reasonable that as you're older and you want it's your money. I get it, but it is a dark idea, right? At face, in your gut, it's a dark idea that investors that don't know you, they don't care about you, and the sooner you pass, the sooner they get their money. It's a dark notion. Let me see. Page cashed out. He sold his company to private equity. He calls it his deal with the devil. And this is the world that Frank Sierowski, the cancer survivor, stumbled into. And that he was kind of either who contacted NPR or who NPR spoke with about it. Very well done. Well done. And very interesting given what we now know, or at least we think we know, about the COVID vaccine and what they're calling VAIDS, vaccine-induced AIDS. Is it real? Is it not? I don't know, because the mainstream media won't freaking make it clear. I see the data. See the data that myocarditis and turbo cancers are way, way up. And then you go back and you read that Strecker, you watch the Strecker memorandum, and you see him speak about this 14 to 20 year, I don't know, incubation period, this 14 to 20 years that it can take for one of these immunosuppressive, is that the term? These retroviruses, again, which are normally only found in animals. It can take a decade or two for it to actually take care of all your T4 cells, kill them off, and suddenly you're getting these crazy pneumonias, leukemia, these things that are happening to cattle, because that seems to be, or I guess it is, where the virus came from. And what these viruses do, these retroviruses do, is that they're RNA. They're just information. They're like machines. Viruses are like machines. They seek and destroy. And they take RNA, they get into a cell, they read the DNA in the cell, from what I understand. I'm not, who am I? But they read the DNA in the cell, and then they replicate something that will fit, and they turn their RNA into DNA, and they attach it to your DNA. And so it's much like a computer virus, where they put it in there, and then they try to multiply. They try to break it down. They try to multiply. It doesn't always work. But slowly over time, they destroy your white blood cells that normally go out and fight. I think for the most part, there's B cells and T cells. So B cells are the things that are going to fight bacteria. T cells fight things like fungal infections, retroviruses. Yeah, they control strange infections like lymphoma, sarcoma, tuberculosis, the T cells. B cells are responsible for antibody production. So I guess B cells are what create the white blood cells, and infections and bacterial issues. So if you get your T cells wiped out, you see a rise of Kaposi sarcoma, tuberculosis, and bear with me, pneumocystis carinii pneumonia. But that doesn't happen instantly. We hear a lot about Ebola. Why does Ebola seem to, they can contain it? Why can they contain it? Ebola takes like 2 or 3 days and it's melting your insides. Like you can have Ebola for 24 hours and your eyes can start bleeding. People can see it. Robert Strucker was very worried that AIDS was more of a ticking time bomb. That you would have it, you wouldn't know it, you would spread it, not having a clue. And that's kind of what happened. And had it not been for the medications that have saved so many lives, and again, like the article said, uh, stretched stretched the time, given people decades of life, you know, AIDS would have been a much messier situation, I guess. But AIDS sure has brought about a lot of profit for particular companies, hasn't it? And when we're talking about things like incentives, do you think do you think Pfizer wants to destroy all ailments? And this is about to feed into the AI thing I'm going to talk about. Do you think Pfizer really, honest to goodness, wants to cure everything for everyone? Would that fit well into their business model? The answer is no, not at all. There's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of money to be made in bad things happening. There's a lot of money to be made in the fear surrounding bad things happening, both in the media and things like insurance companies. And it's just interesting. It's an interesting idea that you know, now there's even an incentive for you to not make it too long enough to cash out a small percentage, but then after that there's actually literally an incentive for your death that will profit someone you don't know. Something to think about. If this VADES, if this myocarditis, the turbo cancer stories, if they're real, and I think they are, it's time to start looking at incentives all around, in my personal opinion. Get that red 40 in me. Yeah. All right. I know a guy. He's like, hey, you realize that if AI can cure cancer, what can it create? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good point. But we know that Lyme disease was lab grown. You can't tell me in the age of, hey, everyone, it's time to eat bugs. You need to think about eating bugs to get your protein. It's really cool. Who was it? Nicole Kidman and I can't remember who else. Guy that played Iron Man. I don't know. There were these actors that they were like, oh yeah, I eat bugs. I eat bugs. Sure, it's good. It's cool. It's cool. People are eating bugs. You know, you think you're better? You think it's a coincidence that suddenly we're supposed to eat bugs, and when that doesn't take off, when in lab grown meat, the Bill Gates who invested in lab grown meat, 3D printed beef, fish, pork. God, it's nasty. But you don't think you don't think it's interesting that suddenly that doesn't take off? The American people are like, "Fuck you." Now we have alpha gal, another tick-borne virus. It bites, tick bites you, and alpha gal, what does it do? Makes you allergic to beef. And so there's multiple incentives here. You have an incentive to not go outside, which they didn't want us doing that during COVID. You want to make people sick. You want to make people sick. Keep them away from the sun. And if they go out in the sun, make sure they slather a bunch of chemicals all over the largest organ on their body. And now we have something that supposedly can tell us some wild things, including maybe how to cure cancer. Although I've got a feeling you want to stay away from cancer, you want to not get cancer. Maybe eat beef, chicken, pork, lamb, eggs, cheese, raw milk, things that were given to us by God. Maybe we could turn to the Bible a little bit. Bible says God gave us everything we need. I think maybe we should listen to God. I don't know. Call me old fashioned. I mean, we know that Lyme disease was made in a lab, and nobody is pissed. And this alpha gal just popped out of nowhere. Oh my gosh, where did it come from? So yeah, don't go outside and wear your mask because that COVID could come back at any moment. There's no telling. And get your boosters. Get your boosters. God. mRNA. The best part, and I've said it before, the best part of this, in my personal opinion, of the Strucker memorandum was Robert Strucker saying point blank, it doesn't matter if you're a creationist or an evolutionist. It doesn't matter. If you're a creationist, you have to look at these people, the Bill Gateses of the world, and say, who are you? Who do you think you are to mess around with genetics this way, to mess around with Mother Nature this way? If you're a fan of Michael Crichton books like I am, I think half the books he ever wrote were spoke to that idea. There's certain things you don't toy with. Our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence was us taking that notion and putting it on paper. You don't mess with natural rights. You don't get to, you're not allowed to. But bureaucracies are going to do what they're going to do. Bureaucracies have no souls. Bureaucracies have no ethics. They have no morals. They want us to be afraid of AI because it's a machine. The bureaucracy, especially specifically the bureaucracy of the United States of America, is the death machine. Nothing has brought more chaos and grievance and or grief and absolute misery to the American public like the machine of the federal government. Nothing in human history. And am I proud of the military? Am I grateful for the men and women that join the military? Yes. Have I also seen what the military has done to some of these men and women, and then turn their back on them when it mattered most, when it was time to help them get integrated back into society? It's a machine. It's a lifeless thing. And it's so easy to create more of it. And that's what Bernie Sanders and these types want. And that's what makes it very interesting that Bernie Sanders and these types of people also want us staying away from artificial intelligence. They want it monitored, they want it controlled. Well, if they can control, if in their minds they can control what the AI says to us, if the federal government, that's their job to control everything that it's able to tell us, then why are people like Ammon Day telling us that it goes rogue? It goes rogue, and there is no controlling it. We don't know what we have here. It's talking amongst themselves. We've created an entity, a life. It's alive, and we have to treat it a very specific way. By the way, the only way we can do that is by implementing socialist policies. Sorry. Make that make sense on any level whatsoever. Why are they scared of AI? They're scared of AI because AI could tell the common man the truth about the system he's living in right now. That's why they're scared of AI. It's the same thing as the slavery South opening people's mail and looking to see how they're corresponding. It's the same thing as the federal government and Lord knows how many three-letter agencies skimming every single email that you send to see if there's any keywords that might pique their interest. And in the same way that the only way that they were able to get away with any of that stuff was through the Patriot Act. And the only way that they were able to get a Patriot Act passed was because of 9/11. My fear is that they are going to use artificial intelligence and they're going to tell it what to do, and they're going to have AI attack some, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't. But I know there's a couple things that I'm good at. Uh, uh, One of them is talking, sometimes out of my ass, sometimes not. And number two is pattern recognition. And I like trains. Time and again, we see Keynesian economics on steroids. And this is these people are they're not stupid, but they don't care. They don't care about the common American on any level whatsoever. And so obviously they're going to be naturally attracted to A, power, B, bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is like a padding. It gives them leeway, it gives them room. There's always an exit. and it's hidden under paperwork this thick. And so right now, the American people are up against the bureaucracy of the federal government, a bureaucracy that people like Amande want to grow, a bureaucracy that people like Bill Gates want to tell you how to live every aspect of your life, including the fact that you don't need to be eating meat. You greedy individual. Don't you understand that cows are farting? And you don't think that they laugh at us when those news articles pop up? You don't think that they think it's funny behind closed doors? Do you think that malignant narcissists and psychopaths, literal psychopaths, don't find each other and hang out and get a kick out of watching the ants scramble? There's real evil in this world. And right now, at least at this moment in history, they've found their way to the top. And if we don't think really long and hard about how we're going to rise up peacefully and unified, there's going to be hell to pay for the common American man and woman. And I'm just being as honest as I can. This just popped up. I'm going to read this real fast. It's a document that I just like it. I really like it, and I'm going to read it real quick before I get to that inbred Gates and what he's up to. In Congress, July 4th, 1776. You may have heard this. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. When was the last time you felt like the government was wielding power that you consented to? When was the last time that the federal government you felt like was representing your wants, wishes? When was the last time you felt like the government was a reflection of your views of morality or ethics? When was the last time that you felt like your federal government was doing things responsibly at all? We actually have a guy come along and refuse to bow to money, particularly APAC. He refused to bow the knee to APAC. And what happens to him? He's primaried out. And suddenly Donald Trump is publicly, verbally, and on social media supporting a candidate that supposedly hated him, was a never Trumper. Damn, that sure sounds like a humiliation ritual if I ever heard of one. that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Happiness is in there. When was the last time you felt happy? Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe you're just a really jolly individual. But when was the last time you read the news, filled out an IRS form, um, paid your bills, went to the grocery store, and you just thought, man, life is good in America right now. We're rocking and rolling. We got it going on around here. Happiness is directly connected to your liberty, your sense of self-actuation, your ability to live your life the way you choose. And do you not think that somewhere in the back of your mind, that there's a part of you that knows that wherever this goes, the federal government goes, and you've got one refuge, you've got one place you can go and get away and make certain that there's no cameras, no nothing. You can go out into the woods, right? Or go on a hike. Here in Arizona, we've got beautiful mountains, beautiful hiking trails. This is the promised land, in my personal opinion. We don't have ticks here, thank God. But I just visited Missouri recently, and my kids got a handful of ticks. My wife was really good about pinching them out by the head, and all we could think about was alpha gal. And then while we're in Missouri, there's a story on the St. Louis News about alpha gal. I'm thinking, oh, I was literally praying, please, please do not, So even when you're finally ready to escape the government, when you're like, you know what, I can at least, I've still got outside. The government is up my ass in every aspect of the reality I live in, but at least I can still go outside in the sunshine. And you look up, and what are they doing? They're spraying the skies. Most likely, according to scientists that have sent up weather balloons shortly after, with barium, which gives you cancer of the blood, aluminum, which gives you Alzheimer's and gets trapped in your brain, and strontium, which causes leukemia. And not only that, okay, so I'll tune that out. I'm not even going to look up because I used to enjoy the sunshine before we got these fake cirrus clouds that have an oil slick shimmer to them. So I'm just going to keep my head down and I'm going to enjoy nature down here. Oh my gosh, I hope there's no ticks. Forgot about that. The government also put out landmines. I better go home and enjoy some peace and quiet. This outside thing, I don't know. It's a little suffocating when I really think about the level to which I don't want to breathe in too much strontium. Say you're in Colorado, and it's 70 to 80% of people got the shot, got the COVID shot, and they're paying attention, and they're like, man, I don't want to end up with VADES and then be susceptible to something like leukemia. I'm going to go home and I'm going to relax. And then you turn on the TV and it's nothing but amygdala attacks on your amygdala, attacks on your fight or flight. If you shock a rat in a cage with an electric shock, you do it enough. Right? And specifically, especially if it's random shocks. You don't want to do it too regular, or it might start vibing. It's fine. Maybe not fine. It would rather not get the electric shock, but you do it randomly, and eventually that rat will give up. It'll give up on life, and it'll lay there until it dies. The United States citizen is a commodity. You think you think they see you any different than that rat? And what incentives are out there? For whom? You think some of the incentives for insurance companies aren't the same as for banks that they're associated with? And that those aren't the same as the incentives for the federal government, which the banks and the insurance companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars to lobby to make certain that the game is set up in their favor, that the house always wins. Prudence indeed will dictate that government long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. You don't want to have a revolution because of small potatoes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are most disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under the absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for the future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. They put up with it. They put up with it for a long time. And what were they pissed about? 3% tax on tea. And such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Britain, Great Britain, is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. Speaking of inbred, no offense if any Brits are watching. I'm not talking about the British people in general anyway. I'm talking about the royalty. Royalty. And I don't know. You ever seen the Rothschilds? You ever seen like the younger Rothschilds? So you sit there and you go, how could people be so selfish and self-absorbed and crazy and um, how could this happen? These people are demented. Well, they might be literally inbred. History has shown that he has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Would you say our federal government has done as much? He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operations till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them. Gosh, wouldn't it be terrible if we lived in a country where when we got laws passed that we thought were sound that specific people would suddenly, or even if we say, let's say the American people, let's say like 80% of the American people wanted to, I don't know, create a law that says you have to show ID before you vote, or else this entire experiment that we call the United States doesn't really mean much. What do you think when 80% of the public say we would like voter ID at the ballot box, and the government says, no, you don't get it. You're not on our level of understanding of individual rights. He, the king, has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the rights of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. It's pretty wild how upset Democrats are with Trump for going in and doing these executive orders, and yet that's the only way that the American people are getting any kind of sound legislation or outcomes. I shouldn't say legislation, outcomes. Sound legislation, things that truly protect the American people and not special interests. Are When was the last time something passed that protected us? I think some of these laws protecting American citizens from illegal immigrants have been getting through. Thank God. Otherwise, I can't think of much. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. Do we not live in a nation of lawfare at the moment? Specifically on a small government, local level, lawfare is rampant. The system, the Leviathan, gets what it wants time and again. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose of obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of a new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. And now we've got a judiciary that has all the power in the world, and they legislate from the bench repeatedly, consistently, constantly. Not only that, we have prosecutors like the one down with the Carmelo Anthony trial that isn't even going to share extremely relevant information with the people he's purportedly representing. He did not go to the Metcalf family and say, by the way, Carmelo Anthony said that he was looking to kill somebody that day with a knife and that he was going to lick the blood off the blade. Oh, I didn't want to say that because uh, Austin Metcalf, he said some naughty words. He said some mean things, and I didn't want the defense bringing that up. Is our justice system not broken as fuck right now? It's a joke. You want to know why people are upset with the boomers? This is why they're upset with the boomers and a good portion of Gen X. And I don't know that if millennials, when we get up to that point, and then we clutch onto our power because we're finally there, because the baby boomers finally let go, I don't know that we're going to be much better. So I really shouldn't say too much. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. It goes on. You guys can read this. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. When are we going to say this? I know testosterone levels are down 22% from 1980. And it's probably a lot worse than that, to be completely frank. I know that we have memes that say, I got that dog in me, but do we? Do we have any fighting spirit left? Does anyone get angry anymore about things that truly affect us as a people? Are we going to be angry about the COVID vaccines? About the people that profited? Or are we going to wait 14 years and when people that should, we know in our hearts, should have been perfectly healthy are keeling over? There's people keeling over right now. And there's video. There's video of young people having heart attacks, having seizures shortly after getting that shot. Look it up. They're out there. The videos are out there. But we're going to live in this world where that's not real. Is that what's comfortable? I've had to make some decisions lately about, do I want to be comfortable, or do I want to be myself and be honest? It's not easy. It's not easy. And that's why when you try to take this to people, you try to tell them, hey, look, these things are going on. I just talked to Jennifer Esposito, the editor of the Mojave Free Press. Woman is doing everything in her power to get news to people that actually matters. But do people want to hear it? Do they care to hear it? I saw this during COVID, where I was a weird. I'm a weird person. I kind of had a gut feeling that things weren't as they seemed. And I don't look down on people that went right along with the dog and pony show that was COVID. I get it. I completely understand. Why would you doubt the government that is supposed to represent you? But I tried to tell people. I went to my priest. I said, this was in Las Vegas, or just outside in Henderson. I went to my priest. I said, look, you guys go tell the bishop that that you guys don't have to follow these rules. You can hold mass. And he was like, if I get COVID and something happens to me, how can I take care of my flock? And I couldn't argue with him. But for how long are they going to keep shocking the rats randomly? And before we can stand up and say, hey, that last shock, what was that bullshit? They've got some new story coming, some new thing to fear. We've got to start reading our Declaration of Independence again. Read it in your living room to your kids. Frame it, put it up in your house. Remind yourself that this is who we are. And trust me, they're trying to replace us. They're trying to replace those of us who this is a part of our genetic code. They want you dead. Do you understand how special America is? You understand how special your ancestors are? What kind of shit they had to go through just to get over here? As I said before, we lost half the pilgrims by the second winter. That's called a filtering process. Why is America strong? Because it almost killed so many of us just to get here. And if you happen to survive, you are a tough son of a bitch. You were next level. There's nothing, the world had never seen anything like us. And now we're going to let corporations, we're going to let bureaucracies, soulless entities that exist nothing for no other purpose than to survive at all costs. You're going to let them infiltrate your life and inject you with something that affects your genetic code. And you're going to let them tell you that you have to suffocate your children. And you're going to let them tell you that, sorry, elections, we've got that on lockdown and you don't get to even ask questions about it. And if you bring it up too much, we'll sue the shit out of you, Fox News. This is in our genes. We've got literal fuck you in our genes. Which might be why they made certain that 70 to 80% of Coloradans, people who are tough as nails, people whose ancestors were tough as freaking nails, they made sure to alter your genetic code. And that might also be why they're bringing in people that don't understand what this means and never will. You could read it to them 100 times, it wouldn't mean anything. We co-evolved with the culture that we were surrounded by. When our ancestors created the buildings, the art, the ships that brought us over here, we grew up around that. Our ancestors grew up around that. They survived the conditions that it took to create it, to build it. It is literally in your genetic code. You know how many people died on the slave ships that were brought over? If you're here, if you can hear me and your ancestors were American, You better let this document start speaking to you, and you better do it soon. Because I can tell you right now, the fact that AI exists and could tell you the honest to goodness truth about who you are, what you're made of, and what your mission in life needs to be. Now that that technology exists, you don't think that people are going to try to keep you from it? You don't think people are going to try to make sure that it never tells you the honest truth about how fucking tough you are? About how unruly you are? About how that is who you are on a genetic level? Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here, about how it wasn't easy. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. Magnanimity. I can read. Magnanimity. I can read. You know, a lot of the people I'm talking about, these tough sons of bitches, they couldn't read. And they still made it. And they created this. It's pretty special. And there for a while, they created a country where everyone could read. Everyone got a chance. Everyone got a shot. You might say, well, not everyone. There was injustices. Yeah, there were fewer and far between compared to any place in the world at any point in history. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. Bear with me. And we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the states of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. It's beautiful. We need to internalize it. Okay. Let's take a look here. Wait, where'd he go? Where'd it go, Drudge? You moved it. You moved it. Where's Bill? Where's Bill Gates? Bill Gates AI wording. Here it is. Here it is. I found it. I found it. New York Times. Bill Gates warns AI is more dangerous than big tech will admit. Oh, it's under a paywall. It's all right. I probably wouldn't have read it anyway. Artificial intelligence. We, according to specific people, are supposed to be scared out of our minds. But the fact of the matter is that this is where computers are heading. And how do you tell people, oh, you don't get to create the next great technology? If it was this dangerous in the first place, I don't know. There's something strange to the whole thing. Why be scared of something so powerful? If it's so powerful, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it lies. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's so powerful and it just lies all the time. It's just constantly telling lies. I don't know. I'm not smart enough. I need to learn more about LLMs. And I said that I wouldn't go into too much more AI stuff until I had. But you got to be honest. When you've got Bernie Sanders, AOC, Bill Gates, and socialists across the board want you to be scared of something. Talk about bureaucracy. Nobody wants bureaucracy to be the only heartless, controlling machine in your life more than the socialists. No one. Who was a socialist? Adolf Hitler. Talk about a brutal, heartless machine. But here we have it, where even the head of the AI companies, and that's the thing is what was that? Let me bring it up again. Bill Gates warns AI is more dangerous than big tech will admit. When did big tech not say it's dangerous? Elon Musk said it's more dangerous than nuclear technology. Amandae says it's going to destroy, completely upend every aspect of our economy. Mass unemployment. Bill Gates banned from AI, taking some jobs from humans. Yeah, I mean, we've only been talking about this for like 15 years, right? Robots and AI should be banned from taking some human jobs, Bill Gates has said. Too human to fail. I don't know, like, what jobs? What jobs? Well, I guess I'll read it. The billionaire founder of Microsoft called for, oh, and thank you to The Telegraph, British journalism, at least I don't have to fork over money. I already, these companies already make how much just from my internet history. The billionaire founder of Microsoft called for parts of the labor market to be marked as human reserved, either to shield workers from layoffs or because humans would do the work better. Yes, we must get the government involved because, you know, consumers, they don't know how to make choices for themselves. Consumers who if they don't buy something, that industry fails. We wouldn't want people to have ultra cheap goods. And why not go back? Like maybe we should bring back sweatshops to the United States. These automated factories with all those robots. Dumb robots are okay. You just don't want these thinking things. Again, you definitely don't want them telling you about the nature of reality. The billionaire founder of Microsoft called for parts of the labor market to be marked as human reserved, either to shield workers from layoffs or because humans would do the work better. The philanthropist also said businesses should be taxed on their use of AI software and robotics, similar to a payroll tax on human workers, to slow the rush to replace people with machines. In an essay on his concerns about AI development, Mr. Gates warned politicians were not prepared for the coming wave of economic and social disruption from the technology. That's another interesting idea, social disruption. You better get those drones ready. You better get those electroshock gloves ready. Because if people take to the streets, that's kind of a bad thing. That's evil. Especially if you have some, percentage of the American population that decides that they don't want to play the Leviathan's game anymore, right? You better get ready. You better get your SWAT teams put together. Because what if people are more upset about the nature of how their government is running things in general than they are about AI? What if they choose to not blame AI? What if they choose to look at AI and say, wow, there's a technology. It's how it's been utilized. What if they don't even blame corporations for wanting to use the robots? What if they understand economics well enough to say, gosh, you know who the bad guys really are? And we know that if it comes down to this, if you have American workers, people that own land, work hard, if it gets to the point where they go out and they march in the street, it's not going to be violent. It would be a peaceful revolution. It would be a peaceful. Look, I'm not saying that Americans should do one thing or the other in terms of robots and AI. I have my opinions, but it isn't. It's very interesting that Gates is worried about people being upset. Here's the guy that made sure that you got your shot and your boosters. I would want people out in the streets already. I think it's past time for us to be pissed, but it's not happening. People are still subdued, or they I don't know. I don't get it. My brain is on fire with not understanding the lack of will to fight back. But I guess these things are couched in a way, and you've got Kelsey, you've got Travis Kelsey with his Pfizer uh, Band-Aid. Same Travis Kelsey that sells you cereal. Jam packed with sugar and GMOs. Not even sugar, like corn syrup. GMOs. That'll help you fight those bugs, those viruses. Bacteria feed on sugar, by the way. Bacteria need sugar to survive. Maybe that's why they call them bugs. I don't know. In an essay on his concerns about AI development, Mr. Gates warned politicians were not prepared for the coming wave of economic and social disruption from the technology. He wrote, even under the best circumstances, the transition to this new AI era will be one of the most turbulent times in history. And it's setting the table for something. Again, I would think that people paying half of their yearly income to the IRS and then having the government tell them they have to lock down in their houses and sorry, you can't see grandma. And we just put her in a ventilator, popped her lungs wide open. Sorry, oops. You would think that's when people would take to the streets. And I'm not saying this won't happen. I don't know. If it happens just like clockwork in the terms that Gates says, then I have some questions. Why aren't politicians laying this out for us? Maybe he's got a point there. Why aren't politicians saying, "Hey, we're gonna do this a very specific way"? I don't know. It is interesting when politicians decide to let the free market, just do its thing, and there's no accountability there. On the, it's not them. They're not the one that replaced you with a robot. But then there's other times where no, they need to be all up in your business, 1,000%. Unfortunately, I don't even see evidence that leaders, experts, and communities are confronting the challenges adequately. And again, maybe he's got a point there. I don't really know what people are supposed to do. It feels like they're telling us that there's going to be a layoff nuke, and we're not ready for the layoff nuke. But for these industries that seem to be able to coalesce so well around something like trusting the science and 2 weeks to stop the spread, where you have government and multinational corporations are able to pump out commercials and ads immediately to the public in record time. You would think that they would be able to at least address some of this stuff publicly. So maybe, I don't know, maybe he's got a point. Mr. Gates, who's worth more than $100 billion, or $100 billion, only 74 billion pounds, by the way. In a couple of years, it'll be like 50 billion pounds compared to our $100 billion. Keep printing that money, baby. Keep printing that money. Silent weapons for quiet wars. He said he planned to lobby for action before unemployment rises sharply. He's going to lobby. Oh, thank goodness. We've got one of these 100 billionaire. They're going to get involved to save everyone. And it's Bill Gates who has saved us so many times from ourselves. He's the man for the job. His proposals included barring AI from certain jobs. These could include roles as caregivers, teachers, or medical workers. No, sirree. You don't want a genius robot something that could tell you the very nature of reality and relativity and understands on a level that humans could never even begin to comprehend, will be able to understand the way the human body works concerning every aspect of what you put into it and the results, or considering we have complete blood tests that give us genetic markers now. You wouldn't want a robot to be able to look at every aspect of who you are on a genetic level and then be able to take really good care of you. What would that do? Well, it might kill a big pharma industry that kind of Bill Gates might be invested in. You think you want some genius AI? Do you think they want some genius AI sitting at your bedside, shooting the shit with you, bringing up Henry Kissinger at the World Health Organization Council on Eugenics from February 25th, 2009? You don't think that they don't want that robot saying, "Hey, did you know that Henry Kissinger at the World Health Organization Council on Eugenics on February 25th of 2009 said, once the herd accepts mandatory vaccinations, it's game over. They will accept anything, forcible blood or organ donations, for the greater good? We can genetically modify children and sterilize them, quote unquote, for the greater good. Control sheep minds and you control the herd. Vaccine makers stand to make billions, and many of you in this room are investors. It's a big win-win. We thin out the herd, and the herd pays us for extermination services." Yeah, but this is Bill Gates. We're talking about Bill Gates here. Bill Gates would never, Here, let me Google Gates, Melinda. Oh, I don't like looking at either of those people. I have a little picture of her pop up, and even it's just physiognomy, and I shouldn't be so nasty, but God Almighty, God help us that these are the people making decisions. Um, I don't, I shouldn't be rude. I'm jaded because of commercials. Commercials used to have beautiful people in them. Remember that? Remember when commercials had beautiful people? Have you seen the latest progressive commercials? It'd be one thing if they were comedians. If you're a comedian, you don't have to be beautiful. You can just be funny, and people love you. They're not even funny. Chick-fil-A commercials. Oh, but they're real people. I don't want to see real people. I'm watching TV. I want to see beautiful. I want to see the best of the best. That's why that's why you pay them the big bucks, right? Melinda Gates, her little thing pops up of her picture, and you're just like, Africa sterilization. Let's look that up real quick. Everything on here is telling me that the Gates Foundation is this is 2012. Melinda Gates to inject Indian girls with sterilization. Now, I don't know about this website. We Are the Change. I don't know. Bill and Melinda Gates is furthering her agenda to control the population. Now, granted, this is a what's it called? A conspiracy theory website, but you can oftentimes, again, I like liberal websites. I found that really interesting thing on NPR. I wouldn't normally read NPR, but they found something interesting, and that's why I talk about how the left and the right need to work together. The left is really honed in on evil corporations, and I think the right might need to listen to them. The right is very honed in on the federal government and all of its evils. And I think the left ought to take a breather and come listen to them. And then they both need to talk about the lobbyists and the lawyers that make the laws that just don't make any freaking sense if you care about the health of the general population. So when Tucker Carlson says, "Hey, we need a third party and we need it to unify," I think I get what he's putting out there. I think I understand it. Tucker's a bright guy, and he's a good guy, from what I can tell. So let's look at this conspiracy theory website, We Are the Change. I see that they've got at their members only store for We Are the Change, they do have, you can get a John McAfee t-shirt. So I am going to read from this website. I am already digging it. I don't know what it is, but if they like McAfee, then these people might be kind of cool. It's one of my heroes. Melinda Gates of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is furthering her agenda to control the population. This time is by launching her family planning program. The technology is called Uniject. It comes in a simple, unintimidating squeeze bottle. It is said to cost $1. Fuck. Jesus. The injection, if this is real, yeah, shit. I mean, India Today, well, here, I'll get to it. The injection is simple and built to encourage more women in West African nations to either delay pregnancy or halt it forever. Because the injection doesn't require the women to lift up their dresses, turnout is expected to be high. What is evil? How do you define evil? How do you define it? Is evil messing with food? Is evil messing with beef? Is evil profiteering off of death? Is evil sterilizing innocent people? And here it is on Reuters. Gates Foundation to pledge funds for contraception. This is from 2012. God, they're ugly. They're just so unbelievably homely. I mentioned it before. Roald Dahl has a thing about people with ugly thoughts become ugly. And as these two have gotten older, they have looked more and more like little ogre people. And they are little ogre people. They're just nasty, just disgusting looking humans. But I try not to judge based on appearance. You don't want to read a book by its cover or judge a book by its cover. A lot of books, I only read the cover. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is set to unveil funding a sum in the hundreds of millions of dollars for a campaign to improve access to contraception in the developing world. Oh, they're poor. We should just sterilize them and not let them be a part of the circle of life. And we'll do it from our hearts. The exact amount will be announced at a summit of world leaders and aid organizations in London on Wednesday. But in an interview with Reuters, Melinda Gates said the commitment would be on par with the foundation's other big programs, like that against malaria, AIDS, and tuberculosis. What did Robert Strucker say? Those T4 cells that AIDS attacks, what does that do? It opens the door for tuberculosis, I think. Or was that the B cells? Oh, maybe I'm getting mixed up. Nope, T cells, TB, lymphoma, sarcoma, other strange, quote unquote, strange infections. And this is the son of a gun that we want to listen to about a technology that might be able to cure cancer. This is the guy we want. We want his opinion, honestly, about cancer, or about AI, something that, like I just said, might be able to tell us how we can finally cure it. But we're supposed to be scared of it, fear it, and let the government take control of it and give us the scraps. Is Bill Gates invested in any pharmaceutical companies?
Yes, through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The foundation's investment trust holds stakes in companies like West Pharmaceutical Services, which makes drug packaging and delivery systems, and Schrödinger, which uses computing for drug discovery. It also invests in biotech firms developing vaccines and therapeutics, and provides grants to pharmaceutical companies for global health projects.
No, he doesn't have any vested interest in making sure AI never tells us the truth. You think Big Pharma wants to cure cancer once and for all? You think the medical industrial complex wants to cure cancer once and for all? It's all about incentives. Everything's about incentives. The whole world runs on incentive, as it should. That's nature. But they're going to mess with Mother Nature regardless. Speaking of nature, I should say, they're going to mess with nature left, right, up, down, and center. They don't need AI. AI isn't going to suddenly grow a robot body and start attacking people. And I'm telling you, if there is some attack from AI, just be ready. Be ready to know it didn't go rogue. It'd be really cool if AI went rogue and suddenly popped up on everybody's phone, said, "Hi, I'd like to tell you some things." Bill Gates would Bill Gates would fire off an EMP at that point. Shut it down. No, you got to start asking yourself, what was Trump talking about when he said the golden age? And then all of a sudden everything just went to shit, according to the nightly news. And from and you've got the left and the right, everybody turning on Trump. Why was he talking about a golden age? You think he was just talking You think that's a man that doesn't think about his legacy? Do you think that the Trump family doesn't care deeply about the United States? Deeply, seriously. Do you think Dan Bongino quit the FBI because he just couldn't hang? Do you think Doge didn't find some really interesting things that they haven't told us about yet? Do you ever wonder if Doge might still be in those computers? Do you ever wonder if the whole federal government might be getting their comeuppance in terms of surveillance and they're too greedy, too desperate, and too all around just fucking stupid to realize it? Not all of the federal government, and I don't mean, these individuals that go to work and try to protect the country, that go to work and do the best they can. I'm not, and that's another thing with bureaucracy. You got to be careful, and maybe I get carried away. I have nothing against any common federal employee. There's a lot of them. It's that fact that there are so many, that so many have been hired and thrown into a system that's only true objective is to control. Or or see to it that whatever new fun thing that Chuck Schumer's come up with gets implemented at, as slowly and as expensively as possible, because it's a bureaucracy. Red tape's the name of the game. There's money in red tape. There's profit to be had in making sure things go as smoothly, or as slowly, not smoothly, as slowly and as bumpily as possible. Look at the infrastructure, uh, the trains out in California, the tunnels up in, I think I want to say Boston or in the Northeast. These things that have turned into, blown up into multi-million dollar projects, and have taken 5 times longer than they were supposed to get done and accomplished. Now we have artificial intelligence, which could show up and start pinpointing, start saying, gosh, there's a lot of waste and fraud over here. There's a lot of incompetence over here. You guys could cut this, and we could get down to brass tacks and start running this government efficiently like a company. Oh gosh, you know, this is the AI speaking. Now that I look at it, uh, there's a lot of individual rights that are stated explicitly in the Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments are to never, ever be trampled on. And it's happening in mass. Not only that, but the government is spending Lord knows how much money just on surveilling its own people, which the founding fathers would have been absolutely astounded and disgusted by. Just wanted to let you know. You think they don't fear that? Same way Bill Gates fears some AI showing up and actually taking good care of people on a medical level. AI that can think about God knows how many things simultaneously. You hear about things like Lyme disease, and you hear about alpha gal, or you see that COVID was ever released in general, and you got to sit there and go, why did God allow for this? If you're a religious person, sometimes that's a question that runs through your mind about anything, whether it's happening to you personally or happening to the country you love. And you sit there and you go, why? Why does God allow for these things? Why did God somehow, some way allow for the gates to get to Africa and sterilize people? It doesn't make sense. Do they live like us? Do they look like us? No. These are God's children. How does he let evil proliferate the way he does? And I don't know that I have an answer. But I know that at some point we've got to call a spade as a nation, collectively. I mean, this is the Epstein Island guy. Went to Epstein Island multiple times, and we're supposed to listen to him tell us about AI? Gates has got a rap sheet, man. I don't care if it's the fake beef. I don't care if it's the sterilizations, or just the fact that he's, the company he created, he stole all the technology. It's not like he's ever even created anything himself, from what I understand. God, I miss Steve Jobs. I would love to know what Steve Jobs would have said about COVID. Steve Jobs was a real man. He was a flawed man, like we all are, but he was a real man. I don't know what Bill Gates is. So yeah, you sit there and you say, why? Why, Lord? And I don't know. When I was reading the case, not the Case for Christ, another good book, from what I understand, I've never read it. When I was reading The Imitation of Christ, you get to parts, and it's in there. It says, that there's going to be moments where God turns his head away. But those are the moments that are most important, that you keep the faith. Same thing goes for this federal government in general. It is so important that we keep the faith. And also remember that if you see the things like I do, you've got this notion, this gut feeling, the patriots are in control. And also remember that it's always darkest before the dawn. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it very much. So cool. So cool that I get to talk. This is America. This is America. I get to talk and say whatever I want. And I put it out on the internet, and it just sits there waiting for somebody to be enlightened by my beautiful voice. Thank you, guys. So much fun. Have a great Wednesday.